Tiếp tục là ngày thứ 5. Bây giờ là geometry node. Đó. Đấy. Ok, tab geometry node thì chúng ta sẽ cần tạo mới một cái n
So welcome to the world of geometry nodes. So geometry nodes is actually a modifier. So when we hit new there, we've added in a modifier called geometry nodes. And what the modifier is doing is whatever we want it to, okay? So what this section down here is, this is a node-based system, and it looks familiar, right? You got boxes with little lines, and it's the exact same type of system that was used in our materials, right? But it's a completely different system. Okay, so the same nodes will not be referenced between the completely different systems. So the way this works is our mesh that we've got here of our icing is what is being represented on the left-hand side with your input. It's then taking that mesh and it's feeding it all the way to the right, and it's going to spit out whatever is in your group output. So currently, nothing is changed because there's nothing in between those points. But if I was, for example, don't follow me, but just as an example, if I was to add a set position node, drop this in here, and then change the position of the icing along the Z axis, you can see it's raised it. Okay, now the mesh, if I go into edit mode, is still there. The mesh has not changed. So we're not actually moving the object. This is just happening after the fact via a modifier. Okay. Now, obviously, this would be a rather pointless use for geometry nodes to.
Có nghĩa là C3 C3 nó không ra.
It all the way to the right, and it's going to spit out whatever is in your group output. Follow me, but just as an example.
Vẫn là nha. No.
If I was to add a set.
Okay. E Z
Position node, drop this in here, and then change the position of the icing along the Z axis, you can see it's raised it. Okay, now the mesh, if I go into edit mode, is still there.
Still there. Chỉ khi nào apply nó vào thì nó ấy thôi.
The mesh has not changed. So we're not actually, say, I don't know, What that means is whenever I'm in another part of Blender, say I'm like building stuff, and then I'm like, oh yeah, I need to quickly, change the height of that icing, I've got it there whenever I need to. So essentially, this system enables you to build your own tool that does something that you want it to do in a really flexible way. So it's really powerful. And before geometry nodes, I mean, Blender was kind of limited in what you can do, but I'll throw some examples here. But in the last 2 years since it's been in Blender, people have done some wild stuff with it. And most of this stuff really was just not possible in Blender before without doing custom scripting. So it's really opened up the doors. So it is a very different system, like it's a different way of working than just hands-on in 3D, but it's a really flexible, really valuable system. So any time spent learning geometry nodes, I think, is time well spent. So we want to do sprinkles, and to do that we need to first of all scatter some points onto our mesh. So to do that, hit Shift A for add, and then we're looking for point, distribute points on faces.
This
And then it's just
face. A point, this point on distribute points on face. Okay.
So it's just going to put you in a placement state, and if you just mouse over that line there until it lights up, if you click, it's going to automatically connect it for you. And now you can see we've got points on our icing and a density value. Great, but you might notice the icing has actually disappeared. Ooh. Now the reason for that is we've told it, okay, take that icing object.
Mất mã lớp kem.
And convert it into points, and then just give us the points back. Okay, so what we need to do is say, yes, we want the points, but we also want the original mesh. So we can do that by adding in a node that you use all the time, which is Shift A, Geometry, Join Geometry. So you'll find this node in probably any geometry nodes tutorial. Very versatile. So drop it in here after the points, and you'll notice this input here is a different shape. So normally inputs are circles or triangles or whatnot. This one is a long and elongated shape to signify that it can accept multiple inputs. So unlike these where you can only accept one, this can accept many. So what we need to do is take the output of our original mesh and then feed it over to here. And now we have both the original mesh and we have our points, and they're being combined together, and then
Vậy tại sao không nối thẳng nhỉ? Đâu, nó chỉ nối được một thôi. No.
Very cool. Awesome. All right, so if we were to give this a render right now, you would actually see nothing because these points don't physically exist. They just exist in the 3D space. If we want them to show up in the render, we have to tell it what do you want to render them as. So for that, we need to add an object to be our sprinkle. So your sprinkle could be whatever you want. We're actually going to make two different types of sprinkles in this donut series. So we're going to start though with a very simple one, just a round ball. So just like you would add another object normally, Shift A, and then go Mesh, and then go UV Sphere. Now, this sphere is going to be referenced for every single sprinkle, okay? So we want to go as low res as we can get away with. So I'm going to go with 12 segments and then 8 rings. If you're on a really slow computer and you think this is really going to suffer later on, you could go even lower, but I don't want to go too low because otherwise we're going to see that jagged edge because it's a rounded form. So I don't want to go too much lower than that. But I do want to adjust the scale because obviously this needs to be a tiny little sprinkle. So let's go 0.01. Okay, awesome. All right, now with our icing selected again, you'll notice, by the way, that if you click another object, you don't see your nodes because it's only going to show you the active object's geometry nodes. So if you want the nodes to just be there no matter what, if you click the pin button there, that means no matter what is selected, it's only going to be showing you this object's, the one we pinned geometry nodes. Okay. All right, so to ref what is selected, it's only going to be showing you this object because it's a rounded form. So because these points don't, and now we have both the, awesome. All right, so if we were to give this a render right now, as. So for that, we need to add an object to be our sprinkle. So your sprinkle could be whatever you want. We're actually going to make two different types of sprinkles in this donut series. So we're going to start though with a very simple one, just a round ball. So just like you would add another object normally, Shift A, and then go Mesh.
Giống như là thêm một cái thứ khác. Shift A, Mesh Circle, UV Sphere. Okay.
And then go UV Sphere. Now, this sphere is going to be referenced for every single sprinkle. Okay, so we want to go as low res as we can get away with. So I'm going to go with 12 segments and then 8 rings. If you
12, 8.
If you're on a really slow computer and you think this is really going to suck, so I don't want to go too much lower than that. But I do want to adjust the scale because obviously this needs to be a tiny little sprinkle. So let's go 0.01. Okay, awesome. All right, now with our icing selected again, you'll notice, by the way, that if you click another object, you don't see your nodes because it's only going to show you the active object's geometry nodes. So if you want the nodes to just be there no matter what, if you click the pin button there, that means no matter what is selected, it's only going to be showing you this object's, the one that we pinned geometry nodes. Okay. All right, so to reference, we need to reference that little sphere that we've just created in our geometry node system. And you can do it very easily just by dragging down from your outline up here, just dragging it down into your geometry nodes and dropping it. Okay, so now let's just create some room here. Make a little bit of space. Okay, and what I need to do is add another node to reference this object. And the node is Shift A, Instances on Points, the top one. Okay, and then I want to drop it in here between Distribute Points on Faces and my Join Geometry. So drop it in right there until it lights up. Now the points have disappeared because we're now saying replace those points with whatever is in that instance input. So I'm going to take my geometry from my object info and drag it into the instance. And look at that. We have got our spheres appearing all over it.
Instant on point. Úi xồi, bài này hơi khoai đấy. Bài này khoai đấy. Trước tiên là cho cái sphere này vào cái phần này đã. instant on point. Geometry.
And if I increase the density, we've got sprinkles. And if I do a render, it will actually display.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Doesn't look very good, hey, but it does work, which is the main thing right now. Okay, so first things first, you'll notice that as we increase the density, first problem is that they're crowding each other.
Mình có thể tăng mật độ trên này. Đây.
They are straight up overlapping each other with no respect for its fellow sprinkle, right? Because it's just a random distribution. So we can change that by going here in our distribute points on faces, change it from random distribution to Poisson disk distribution.
Poisson disk. Poisson disk. Poisson disk. Poisson disk.
What a name. So it's changed, but that's just because it's changed your density max, so just increase it again. With this Poisson disk distribution, you get this extra value here, distance min. So now if we can set a low value, we can start to delete. It's almost like each one of those points now is going to have a little radius around it. And if it detects a point within that radius, it's going to delete it. So we just need to increase it slowly, very, very slowly, until we can't see them intersecting anymore. To about there, honestly. If you go too high, like if you really wanted to make sure they weren't touching, you go really high, but it starts to look like too evenly spaced, you know? Like, yeah, it's not actually registering the other objects. It's like it's just doing this little radius thing, which just happens to be perfect for a ball-shaped object, but it's not like an advanced, like it's going to try to fill in all the gaps for you. So yeah, it just kind of, I usually set it to like a little bit of clipping is okay, but I don't want there to be too much. But let's go, yeah, something, I don't know, something like that. We'll actually adjust this later on. I'm just doing it just for this one. All right, a much bigger problem, if I hit Control Tab to go full screen here, if I look at my mesh, I've got sprinkles everywhere. And in fact, I've actually got sprinkles underneath the icing. And that's not good, because it's actually going to put that in the render. Even though you won't see it, your computer is going to use resources to render little individual balls underneath the icing, which is not what we want, obviously. So, going back here, what we need to do to fix this is we need to do weight painting, okay? It's not texture painting, it's a special thing called weight painting. So with your icing selected, if you go from your object mode, you'll see one there called weight paint. Now, your mesh will become blue, and weight paint is actually referenced in multiple parts of Blender. Like if you're doing rigging and animation, you would use weight painting a lot during the rigging step to assign values to certain bones. Essentially what it's doing is it's allowing you to paint a value between 0 and 1 onto any part of the mesh, and then reference that however you want. So we can then reference that weight paint mask in our geometry nodes and use this almost as, well, exactly as a mask for our sprinkles. So if we just do some paint right here on it, you'll see that we have some colors, right? Now these colors aren't going to appear in the red. It's just for you to visualize those values. The blue value means a value of 0, and the red value is a 0 of 1. I believe actually in maybe not the next version of Blender, but maybe the version, I don't know, but they're planning to change the colors of this. So depending on the value, how late watching this you are, your colors might be different here, but it should be the same. Essentially, you should have a brush of 1, and you should be able to paint from 0, which would give a blue value in this case, to a value of 1. So whatever is 1, whatever is red, is where our sprinkles will go. But you'll notice that this is not having any effect. Okay, so we need to reference it. Now, that weight paint that we just did is actually, if we go to our data tab here, it's actually a vertex group. Okay, so that's where that paint went. So you could actually create multiple weight paint types just by like creating them here. But we've just created one, and it's added one here for us. So we can give it a name by double clicking it, and let's call it Sprinkle Mask. Okay. In fact, is it a mask? It's more of a density, sprinkle density, I guess, because it's not masking out. Anyway, all right, sprinkle density. Okay, and where I want to reference this in my geometry node stack is in the distribute points on faces. There is one value here called a density factor, which we got when we used the Poisson disk thing. And this is just a value of 0 to 1. Very convenient. So if I drag out from here and then release, I can add in a new node and just automatically connect it. And the node that you're looking for is called the named attribute. Don't feel bad if you're like, well, how would I know that it's called the named attribute? Because it's called vertex groups over here. You think like, okay, I'm going to type in vertex group, but it's an attribute, but it's one of many attributes. And geometry nodes can do many things, so it's just called the named attribute. So anyway. Alright, so underneath name, we're just going to click that box and you get a pop-up or pop-down, and you're looking for sprinkle density. And there it is. Aha! So now going back into weight paint mode, we can act like an artist and put the sprinkles wherever we want, sprinkles on our donut, which is really cool. So sprinkles are typically, they're like on a plate, and then the wet donut with icing on it is just like dabbed onto it. So you get like a heavy amount of sprinkles right on the top like that, and then less around the sides. And then I usually do like a few like dabs like this, just for some variance. And then also if you hold down Control, that will do so the weight that's being painted is 1, but if I hold down Control, it's going to do a negative value. And I can adjust my strength there as well, and I can just do some negative paints across it, maybe a couple here as well. And I'm trying to deliberately make it look choppy, because I find that if you make it look too like uniform, then it just looks very boring and artificial. Because the real world would have more sprinkles collecting in certain areas than others, right? Maybe it's just like wetter on that part, right? So more would stick to it, or more force was put on that part of the plate as the donut was dabbed into it, right? You just kind of have to think of this stuff, because in the digital world, it's far too easy to make something that looks predictable and boring, and we don't want that. But anyway, something like that. And you could obviously finesse it and make it better than what it is, but that's what we're doing. You'll notice each of these spheres have a very jagged looking shape, and that's because the sphere itself, down here, oh, I think I mentioned this. If you want to quickly zoom to an object without having to find it and pan around, number pad period key. Probably should have mentioned that before, but we haven't really needed it because we've not worked with that many objects. But that'll focus to that object. If you're on a laptop, by the way, if you hold down the tilde key, that'll bring up this section here, and then you've got view selected right there. So tilde is that key underneath your escape key. But anyways, so this is what our sphere looks like. So right click, shade smooth, and now all those sprinkles have a shade smooth. Aha, very nice. All right, now let me just show you a quick little issue that you might run into. If you were to duplicate your donut and create 2, and then on your second donut you're like, hey, I want to have some spice in my scene. I don't want to have the exact same count of sprinkles across both donuts. Let's give a different value to this one over here. Well, you can see that they are now sharing the same value because this node group here is being linked across both objects. But if you wanted, I mean, you could make it its own single object so they're not linked. But if you wanted everything else to remain the same, so that let's say you change the sprinkle at some point, that's preserved across it. But that one value you want to be different across multiple objects, you can expose it. So just like what I did at the start, if I drag out from the value I want to expose, and then I put it up to here in my group input, the empty slot, if I just release it, it's now disappeared, the value's disappeared from here, and it's now appeared in my modify stack over here. And now I can put in a different value. So this has now got a value of 2000, and this one is 500. So essentially, by dragging it out and exposing it, it's essentially removing the value from this node setup and saying this is its own separate thing, which is independent per object. And it has a two birds, one stone kind of effect, that it makes it more accessible. So in a completely different part of Blender, I'm working on my scene and I'm just very quickly giving different sprinkle amounts to different donuts, right? Like a madman, right? No one can stop me. But yeah, very cool. And that's now exposed. Oh, the other thing we probably want to do though, with that this group input here, is I want to give it a different name because density max, not really that useful. I can call it sprinkled density, right? So now it's like a fully customized little node group that I could drop on any object. I could be building a car in the future. I'm like, it needs sprinkles. And I can just drop this on and I've got a sprinkled density value for my car, right? So you can see how geometry nodes, you can build something really customized for what you want, and then it's just readily accessible every time you need to use it. Awesome. Now, one issue that I will show you with this, and actually it's not specific to geometry nodes, but this entire time, for all these videos, we've been building a donut which is too big. So if you hit N in your properties, that's the polygon thing, you can see the size, the dimensions of your donut is 1.2 by 1.2 meters, which for Americans, you can change it. You can change your units to the wacky imperial one. Yeah, 4 feet, right? Okay. Which is way too big, okay. Now, why does it matter, right? Because if you're looking at this, how are you to actually know that this is 1.2 meters rather than the regular size donut? It doesn't actually matter yet, but when we get to rendering with depth of field, or maybe you want to import other objects from other scenes, having a value that is actually true to the object will save you so much time. And it will also make it so that your camera settings, etc., are actually correct. So that bit is very important. So essentially, we should resize this. And really, a real donut is about 12 centimeters, which is exactly 1/10 of what we've got right here. So if we select everything in the entire scene, which you can do by just hitting A for everything, A for all, yeah, that makes more sense, okay. Then, if we hit S to scale, okay, we're now in a scale, well now it's going to scale up and the plane is going to be off the ground. Okay, alright, well let's not scale the lamp and the camera. So everything else, selecting the donut, the donut, the plane, and the sphere, then S, and then I want to scale it by exactly 10%. Now how could I do that? Well, if you look in the top left-hand corner, you've got the values there. And if I went to 0.1, then it would be exactly 1/10 of what it was. But how can I get it exactly at 0.1? Well, two things. One, if you hold down Control, when you're moving any value in Blender, it'll move it in increments, which in this case is 0.1. But you can also actually just type in the exact value you want, 0.1, and hit Enter. And now, if we look at the size of our donut, 0.1 is 0.1. But you can also actually just type in the exact value you want, 0.1, and hit Enter. And now, if we look at the size of our donut, click N, hit N, you can see it's 0.12 meters, or centimeters, Anyway, and that's great. But there is a problem. What you might notice, there's not a problem now, but when you change the scale or the rotation of an object, actually, it's only changed its its local scale. It hasn't actually applied it on a global level yet. So the sprinkle here and the donut have actually got a like pretend value. The scale is set at 0.2, and it's almost like it's saying to the scene, that's not its real scale, it's just been faked to be that size yet. It needs to be applied if you want to like confirm really that this is the true scale or rotation of the thing. And you do that by selecting the things and then hitting Control A and then applying scale. Okay, so now we've done that, we can see something's changed. So our donut here with the sprinkles has now massively changed its density count. And the reason for this is that, if we go to geometry nodes again, let's zoom in here.
You sent in a proposal, but your manager
Proposal.
has so many questions.
Let's look at it with this. This density, this sprinkle density, is actually not the count of sprinkles at all. It's the density in relation to the whole scene. And the way I think of it is like, okay, it's a weird visualization, but if you've got a car and it's driving along a highway, right, a certain amount of bugs are going to hit the windshield, okay? And the bugs could be defined by here, but the smaller the object is, right, you can have the same amount of bugs going across the highway, but if it was like a tiny Matchbox car, there's going to be very few bugs that's going to hit it, okay? So the density is kind of like the density of the world, and now that we've made the object smaller, there's only 3 sprinkles left. There's only 3 bugs that's hit the windshield of our donut here. So this value now needs to be much bigger. In fact, it needs to be exactly like if it was 6,000 before, it needs to be 60,000 now. But the problem is that it's not just a value here. The distance min value has also changed because this is also based on a real world value. So this now needs to be really small. So let's try 0.01, and that's actually pretty good, I think. There's a little bit of overlap, but that's roughly kind of what we want. And let's see if I can increase this. Yeah, so if I want this density to be really dense, I would have to increase it to a crazy number. Now, something I like to do personally, this isn't, you have to do this, but you notice how like this number is really large. And if I want to increase or lower my sprinkle value, and I'm in a different part of Blender, if I'm just dragging this value, it's having no effect because the range, like the scale of it is just so large. So what I actually do is I set it to a value that I think makes sense, which in this case is 200. And then whatever the value was before, it was 200,000, right? I do a math value inside of my geometry node cell. Between here and here, I do a math calculation to multiply that by the value that it needs to be. Almost as like a skethes, math. And from add to a multiply. And math is the most versatile of any node. You can do all sorts of stuff, but multiply. So multiply, and it was 200,000 before. So if I want this value 200, then I just add 1,000. Very quickly change the scale of the sprinkles across the donut without having to like manually type in the value. I can just move it back and forth. And there you go. So that's it. So we've
Trời ơi, cái bài này cái bài này nhiều vấn đề thế. Chưa bao giờ động đến geometry node. Geometry node composting. chơi lâu rồi.
Em không muốn làm chuyện. Em đang phải làm. Em phải làm review. Nhưng mà chiều thứ hai em đi phỏng vấn. Chiều thứ hai em phải nộp
Review của công ty này đang làm hả?
việc thì là của công ty này ấy. Em vẫn hỏi.
Vâng, đơn giản đâu không được à? Hôm nay là ngày bao nhiêu? Không định. Làm đi.
Không mưa.
Làm đi, mai đi chơi.
Mai mưa gì đâu.
Chắc gì mưa.
Nó báo là bắt đầu mưa từ ngày mai rồi.
Không mưa. Làm đi. Ngồi vào bàn làm việc thì đừng có cầm điện thoại nữa. Lúc cầm điện thoại đi ra chỗ khác. Không đến lúc cứ thói quen vào ngồi bàn làm việc là cầm điện thoại. Thấy không?
Nó.
Bây giờ nhá, muốn cầm điện thoại ra ban công ngồi chơi. Rồi vào đây, lúc nào chơi chán rồi thì vào làm. Ra vào ban công ngồi. Cái giường để ngủ, không phải để chơi. Cũng được. Có một chỗ chơi riêng đi, đừng có chỗ nào không chơi cũng được. Nó có cà phê không? Cà phê này nó đủ ngon thôi. một tí cơ mà. Đó, hết lộn sữa rồi. Bé uống không? chơi chơi cầm điện thoại ra ngoài chơi. từ đấy có được. Đi. Đấy, vượt đi. Cầu đi. Đâu, có chỗ đấy chưa?